You live with a constant humming terror in the back of your mind. It is the suffocating fear of losing everything, your position, your wealth, your home, and the people you love. This quiet panic dictates your daily decisions, fills your nervous system with anxiety, and permanently paralyzes your ability to take meaningful risks. You spend your life guarding a vault, terrified of the day it gets broken into. But this entire structure of fear is built upon a catastrophic lie. It is a fundamental illusion that society programmed into you from birth. The belief that anything in this world actually belongs to you today. We are going to violently uninstall that error from your operating system. We are going to explore a radical truth that is not a tragedy, but the exact key to a level of freedom and invincibility you have never experienced. Prepare to understand why the most dangerous and powerful man in the room is the one who has absolutely nothing to lose. You walk through the world entirely convinced that you have a job, that you have a house, and that you have a reputation. We weaponize the word have for everything, constructing a fragile and entirely false identity of an owner. But if you look at the cold mechanics of reality, absolutely none of it is yours. Everything you claim to possess is nothing more than a temporary loan from the universe. The brutal truth you avoid is that your physical body, your fleeting youth, and your family name are all temporary leases. The universe hands them to you for a fraction of time, and it will eventually call the loan back, white-knuckling these temporary assets, trying to freeze time and claim them as permanent property, is the exact root cause of all your human suffering. You must break the spell of possession today. When you realize that you are merely borrowing your current reality, the desperation begins to evaporate. You stop fighting the natural decay of things. You stop trying to hoard smoke. Letting go of the title of owner is the first mandatory step toward reclaiming your internal peace and stepping into your actual power. There is a fatal error in how you define your existence. You have seamlessly merged your being with your having. You look in the mirror and genuinely believe that you are your corporate title, your luxury vehicle, or the specific number sitting in your bank account. You have outsourced your core identity to external objects that can be wiped out in a single afternoon. This fusion is a recipe for psychological destruction. Those external markers are not your permanent identity. They are simply part of your temporary inventory. They are the transient roles you are currently playing or the temporary tools you are using to navigate the world. When you tie your self-worth to an inventory that fluctuates, your confidence becomes a hostage to the market. The master operator forcefully separates who he is from what he holds. You must build an ironclad self-confidence that operates completely independent of external circumstances. If the job vanishes tomorrow, your core remains untouched. You are the silent observer holding the tools, never the tool itself. Secure the foundation of your identity, where no market crash can reach it. Your constant fear of loss is nothing more than a severe mental accounting error. The anxiety that keeps you awake at night is entirely fabricated by the delusion that you ever truly had the asset in the first place. You are suffering from the phantom pain of an amputation that never actually happened, mourning the loss of things you never fundamentally own. Operating under this delusion is like living in absolute terror that a bank is going to confiscate money that was never even deposited into your account. It is a massive waste of your vital energy. You are deploying defensive shields to protect a mirage. This false accounting makes you rigid, defensive, and completely unable to maneuver effectively in a chaotic world. You must audit your mind and correct the ledger. When you finally accept that you're simply a temporary administrator of the things in your life, the blinding panic of loss instantly vanishes. The math is beautifully simple. You cannot lose what you never possessed. This realization does not make you weak. It makes you incredibly dangerous. Society operates on a toxic metric of success, constantly whispering that true safety is found in accumulating more. More capital, more physical possessions, more prestigious titles. You are taught to build higher walls and fill the compound with as much treasure as possible. But this endless pursuit of more is a carefully disguised trap designed to keep you exhausted. The reality of accumulation is entirely backward. Every new item you claim to possess is not a badge of honor, it is a new heavy chain wrapped around your neck. Every asset is a new source of anxiety, a new vulnerability that requires maintenance, protection, and worry. You think you own your possessions, but in truth, your possessions completely own you. True freedom is never found in having more. It is found in the ruthless capability to need less. Freedom is the practiced ability to let go and drop the weight. The man who refuses to be burdened by the heavy armor of ownership is the one who maneuvers with lethal speed. The one who travels lighter always travels further and faster. You must immediately stop viewing yourself as the anxious, desperate owner of your life. That title carries too much emotional weight and blinds your judgment. Instead, you need to adopt the cold, highly effective mindset of the manager. This cognitive shift changes everything about how you engage with the friction of your daily existence. Think of an elite corporate manager. He does not own the company, yet his sole obsessive mission is to care for it, improve its systems, and scale its growth while it is under his direct command. He operates with absolute excellence, but he does not lose sleep over the fundamental ownership of the bricks and mortar. He is detached yet fully engaged. Apply this framework ruthlessly to your own existence. Manage your physical health, your financial portfolio, and your career trajectory with uncompromising excellence, but do so without the paralyzing, desperate attachment of the proprietor. When you operate as the manager, you make decisions based on logic and leverage, completely immune to the emotional terror of loss. The idea that absolutely nothing belongs to you sounds initially terrifying to the heavily conditioned mind. You have been repeatedly told that ownership equals ultimate security, so the concept of letting go feels like willingly stepping off a cliff into the abyss, but the exact opposite is the truth of reality. Stripping away the illusion of permanent ownership is an immense, profound relief that instantly unburdens your spirit. Think carefully about the actual mechanics of your daily suffering. If your corporate title or social status does not define your core value, a sudden termination or failure cannot possibly destroy you. If your worth is not tethered to the shifting, unreliable opinions of the crowd, public criticism cannot break your spirit. Your emotional fragility is directly proportionally tied to the external things you aggressively claim to own. When you finally accept the hard truth that absolutely nothing belongs to you, no external event retains the power to tear you to pieces. You become fundamentally antifragile in a chaotic world. You stop bracing for negative impact and start moving through your environment with the quiet, untouchable confidence of a man who owes nothing to anyone and fears no loss whatsoever. The shield is your lack of attachment. You apply this toxic, industrialized concept of ownership even to the living, breathing people in your life. You subconsciously claim your partners, friends, and children as your exclusive personal property, and this subtle expectation immediately poisons the relationship. This false claim of ownership breeds chronic jealousy, emotional manipulation, and the suffocating, desperate fear of eventual abandonment. True, powerful connection is never about possession or control. It is fundamentally about pure, unattached appreciation. It is the rare ability to genuinely enjoy the presence of someone, to support their personal growth, and to respect their absolute freedom without demanding they remain static or loyal to your ego. When you try to own a human being, you inevitably destroy the very essence of why you love them in the first place. Release your desperate grip on the people around you. When you actively stop viewing individuals as yours, the paralyzing terror of losing them transforms entirely. It becomes a deep, powerful gratitude for the finite, unpredictable time you actually get to share with them. You love them fiercely while they are present in your timeline, but you remain entirely whole and unbroken if they decide to walk away. That is true emotional mastery. Imagine your deepest attachments and prized possessions are precious treasures locked inside a massive, heavily fortified castle. You spend your entire life anxiously patrolling the walls, living in constant, exhausting terror that an intruder will eventually breach the heavy gates and steal everything you have hoarded over the years. This is the paranoid defensive reality of the deeply attached man. Now, visualize a completely radical and terrifying alternative. Imagine you deliberately empty that grand hall, you remove the golden treasures, take down the heavy locks, and leave the massive doors wide open to the wind. What leverage or power does a thief have over an entirely empty castle? Absolutely none. The deadly threat disappears completely, not because you built a stronger wall, but because you boldly remove the target. When you actively stop clinging to external validation, social status, and material permanence, you transform into an impenetrable fortress. Nobody in this world can hold you hostage or dictate your mood. Nobody can threaten to take away what you have already voluntarily released into the wild. You completely disarm the chaotic world simply by refusing to hold on. The empty hands are the most dangerous hands in the room. Do not make the amateur mistake of confusing this calculated detachment with weak, lifeless apathy. You hear the word detachment, and you wrongly imagine a defeated man who no longer cares, a man who completely stops fighting for his ambitious goals or enjoying the beauty of his existence. That is a catastrophic misunderstanding of the fundamental concept. Apathy is nothing more than the pathetic defense mechanism of a coward. True, weaponized detachment is the ability to participate in the brutal competitive game of life at 100% capacity, without ever letting your internal peace hinge on the final score. It is the critical defining difference between playing a high-stakes game with the frantic desperation of an addict and playing it with the cold, highly focused precision of an absolute master. You will absolutely still build the empire. You will relentlessly hunt for the absolute highest, most capable version of yourself. You will love, you will fight, and you will conquer. But you will execute all of this from a place of unshakable internal power, deeply knowing that if the entire structure burns to the ground tomorrow morning, you will stand in the smoking ashes completely unharmed and ready to rebuild. Society conventionally measures a man's ultimate wealth by examining the size of his bank accounts, reviewing his property deeds, and tallying up his shiny luxury assets. But this is the deeply flawed metric of the modern slave. The genuinely wealthiest and most powerful man in the room is never the one who stubbornly holds the most possessions. He is simply the dangerous individual who fears losing the least. The man who operates his daily life without the paralyzing fear of loss is already entirely undeniably free. This is the ultimate untouchable state of human liberty. It allows you to execute massive decisions with ruthless audacity. You begin making your strategic moves based purely on courage and calculated leverage, completely abandoning the weak, reactive posture of scarcity and desperate self-preservation. This serene, unbreakable power is a rare frequency that physical money can never possibly purchase. Your primary daily objective must shift immediately today. Stop aiming to build a larger bank account simply to mask your deep-seated anxiety. Aim instead to forge a smaller, much weaker fear. Strip away the primal terror of losing and watch closely how quickly the entire world gets out of your way. The structure of your life is a brutal, relentless game, and the vast majority of men are playing it entirely on the defensive. They spend every ounce of their vital energy desperately trying to simply not lose the tiny fraction of safety they believe they have acquired. They guard their small territories, terrified to make a move, hoping the world simply ignores them, but the elite operator, the man who actually dominates the board, operates with a completely alien psychology. He does not hesitate for a second to sacrifice a valuable piece to secure a massive, overarching strategic position. He is completely untethered from the emotional outcome of a single isolated move. He plays for the ultimate checkmate, not to preserve his pawns. When you violently eliminate the terror of losing from your mind, your tactical options multiply exponentially. You suddenly become incredibly creative, vastly more audacious, and paradoxically, infinitely more likely to actually win. You stop exhausting yourself protecting a static position, and you finally start playing offense against reality. Your relentless fear of loss is nothing more than a chronic, debilitating anxiety projected into a completely imaginary future. You're suffering over the hypothetical destruction of things that are perfectly intact in the present moment. This mental time travel completely ruins the only actual reality that exists, poisoning your today with the invented tragedies of tomorrow. When you finally accept the cold, hard truth that absolutely nothing in this universe is permanent, you instantly shatter the chains of that imaginary future. You are violently pulled back into the absolute present, grounded in the immediate, undeniable reality where your life is actually taking place. You stop bracing for the end and start paying attention to the execution. Impermanence is not a cruel curse placed upon you by an unforgiving universe. It is a profound and beautiful gift. The fleeting nature of everything is exactly what makes the present moment infinitely valuable. Stop grieving the eventual inevitable end of the timeline and start weaponizing the immediate power of the now. There's a silent, creeping rot that occurs the moment you successfully hoard enough resources to feel completely secure. You build the walls high, pad the bank accounts, and convince yourself that you have finally outsmarted the chaos of the world. You mistake this comfortable insulation for victory, completely unaware that you have just stepped into a velvet trap. Complete safety is a biological and psychological disaster. When your environment demands absolutely nothing from you, your internal edge begins to dull. The ruthless hunger that built your empire is rapidly replaced by a soft, desperate anxiety to merely maintain it. You trade your lethal offensive power for comfortable, quiet stagnation. You become weak. You must artificially inject risk back into your blood, voluntarily step away from the heavily guarded fortress of your possessions, force yourself into unfamiliar arenas where your wealth and your titles offer absolutely zero protection. You must reawaken the dangerous, hungry man you were before you allowed yourself to become comfortable. Your obsession with ownership is deeply rooted in a pathetic, desperate desire for absolute control. You mistakenly believe that if you possess the asset, or if you legally bind the person to you, you can somehow dictate the terms of reality and prevent unexpected pain. You are trying to put a leash on a hurricane, and the effort is destroying your peace. The universe operates on brutal laws of chaos that do not care about your contracts, your boundaries, or your emotional demands. The tighter you grip the steering wheel, the more devastating the crash will feel when the road inevitably washes out beneath you. Attempting to control the uncontrollable is the most exhausting illusion you can entertain. True mastery is surrendering the illusion of control while simultaneously maximizing your capacity to adapt. You cannot dictate the weather, but you can build a completely unsinkable ship. Stop trying to command the violent ocean around you and focus entirely on mastering your own helm amidst the storm. The time for abstract philosophical understanding is over. Right now, you are carrying heavy rusted anchors that you have masterfully disguised as valuable assets. You know exactly what they are. It is the failing project you refuse to drop out of sheer pride. It is the draining relationship you maintain solely out of a pathetic fear of being alone. These anchors are not providing you with stability. They are actively dragging you down to the bottom of the ocean. Every single day you refuse to cut the rope, you are consciously choosing to drown. You're sacrificing your future velocity and your ultimate potential simply to protect comfortable, familiar misery. Take the blade and sever the line. Let the dead weight sink into the abyss where it belongs. The momentary pain of the cut is absolutely nothing compared to the violent, upward momentum you will experience the second you are truly free. Stop negotiating with your anchors and start swimming toward the surface. The world attempts to enslave you exclusively through your attachments. Every single external thing you claim to deeply need becomes a highly effective lever that reality can pull to manipulate your behavior. If your internal peace requires a specific financial outcome or social validation, you are completely a hostage to chance. But the man who requires absolutely nothing external to validate his existence strips the chaotic world of its leverage entirely. People look at this state of absolute non-attachment and confuse it with a cold, unfeeling existence. They do not understand that true emotional invulnerability is the highest form of human evolution. When the external noise can no longer dictate your internal frequency, you unlock a terrifying level of focus. You become immune to the petty threats and manipulations that keep the rest of society compliant and weak. Construct the untouchable mind by systematically hunting down your dependencies. Identify the people, the statuses, and the objects you secretly believe you cannot survive without. Then, mentally destroy your reliance on them. You must prove to your own nervous system that you will remain a sovereign, unbreakable force, even if every single comfort is suddenly ripped away from your environment. You must begin to treat your entire existence as a temporary high-end lease. The universe has handed you the keys to a specific physical body, a specific intellect, and a specific set of environmental circumstances. But you must never forget the cold reality that the universal landlord will eventually demand the property back. You are simply a passing tenant in this reality, not the permanent, immortal owner of the real estate. Adjust your expectations accordingly. How does a master tenant operate? He respects the property deeply. He maintains the structure, he polishes the floors, and he maximizes the utility of the space while he occupies it. But he never loses sleep over the foundational bricks. He knows his time there is strictly limited, so he enjoys the luxury without ever bleeding for it. He manages the asset perfectly without the desperate anxiety of possession. Adopt this exact posture with your own life. Care for your physical form, cultivate your mind, and build your resources with absolute precision. But keep your bags packed near the door. When the time comes for a chapter to close or for an asset to be repossessed by reality, do not throw a desperate tantrum. Simply hand the keys back, walk out the door cleanly, and move forward to the next location. Look closely at the men who dedicate their entire existence to aggressive hoarding. They build massive fortresses of wealth, titles, and social status, convinced that enough accumulation will eventually purchase their permanent peace of mind. But if you look deeply into their eyes, you will see nothing but a hollow, exhausted paranoia. They are perpetually terrified of losing the fragile empire they sacrifice their actual lives to construct. The absolute tragedy of the hoarder is that he inevitably becomes a prisoner of his own success. Every single new possession requires more security, more maintenance, and more of his precious mental bandwidth. He believes he is building a magnificent kingdom, but he is actually just constructing a very expensive, highly polished cage. The physical things he refused to let go of have slowly, silently turned him into their obedient, anxious servant. You must violently reject the hoarding mentality. True operational power is not measured by how much heavy luggage you can drag along with you. It is measured by how quickly you can adapt, pivot, and move. Strip away the excess immediately. Drop the physical things that drain your focus. Cut ties with the social obligations that do not serve your ultimate vision, and absolutely refuse to carry dead weight simply to impress people you do not respect. The word surrender has been heavily corrupted by the weak. You immediately associate it with waving a white flag, abandoning your ambition, and passively letting the world trample you. but tactical surrender is actually the highest form of cognitive dominance. It is not surrendering your drive to win, it is surrendering the agonizing, entirely useless illusion that you can control the unpredictable, chaotic variables of human existence. When you finally stop fighting the natural current of reality, the psychological relief is instantaneous and profound. You immediately drop the heavy, exhausting armor of forced control. You stop trying to aggressively manipulate the opinions of others, you stop trying to freeze time, and you stop demanding that the universe bend to your specific, rigid timeline. The massive amount of vital energy you save can now be entirely weaponized for actual precise execution. Experience the devastating speed of the man who has completely surrendered the desperate need to own his outcomes. He moves like an absolute ghost through the battlefield. Because he carries zero emotional baggage regarding the immediate results, he can process a massive failure in seconds, adapt his overall strategy instantly, and strike again before the competition even realizes what happened. Surrender your desperate attachments and watch your velocity multiply. This is the final, ultimate evolution. Becoming the truly sovereign operator. This is the rare man who walks into any room, any high-stakes negotiation, and any intense relationship, knowing deeply that he does not need a single thing from anyone. He enjoys the luxurious spoils of the world. He engages fully in the theater of life, but his internal core remains utterly detached, silent, and fiercely independent of the surrounding chaos. The world possesses a highly tuned, almost primal instinct for human desperation. People can immediately smell it on you when you are secretly terrified of losing the business deal or losing the romantic connection. That quiet desperation actively repels success. But when you step into total, unapologetic sovereignty, the dynamic flips entirely. When the world realizes you cannot be threatened with loss, it paradoxically begins offering you everything. Assume the silent throne of your own mind. Stop acting like a desperate beggar who is terrified that his few precious coins will be stolen in the middle of the night. You are the architect of your focus and the absolute sole proprietor of your inner peace. Let the external material world burn to ashes if it must. Your internal kingdom is absolutely fireproof. Operate with zero fear, demand nothing from the outside, and conquer the space you occupy today. The illusion of property is the invisible cage in which the vast majority of society lives completely trapped. The antidote is simple, yet it requires immense courage. You must accept that you are not the owner of anything. Embracing this does not impoverish you. It completely liberates you. It removes the crushing weight from your shoulders and hands you an indestructible power. You unlock the rare ability to act without fear, to love without the need to possess, and to live without the anxiety of permanence. Your challenge is this: identify one thing you are clinging to with fear, an expectation, a status, or a possession, and mentally let it go right now. Feel the relief. Understand that your true value does not decrease. If you are ready to claim this unshakable sovereignty, subscribe to the channel and drop "I am free" in the comments as a declaration that your worth is no longer tied to what you hold, but strictly to who you are.